Welcome to TradeTheMBI.com. This is Jonas Reporters for the 27th of December, and well, the records keep coming from ever since Trump was elected. We're just getting nothing but record-breaking days. So we've had this massive decline. Everyone was whining that the end of the world was coming near. We had the 2371, and like I pointed out, on these kinds of big dips, when you have in low liquidity, you can expect anywhere from a third to 50%. Well, we already had started up a third. Once we get to the 50%, we were right here at this 2371 previous algo dip, and above that, it was like, it's unusual, but you could certainly get carry through, and boy, did we get carry through. And there's nothing here until you get to the 23%, which has started to decline, but the previous peak of it, if we go to it, was right there at about 2473. The high was 77, so it kind of hit up against that previous resistance. What we've had now is the reduction in the lows. They're going to come down ever so slightly first to here, and then they're going to cap out right about where they're at. So it's going to start to plateau for a while at that particular point, but dramatic move puts it a buy. Now, with this big massive move, it's not uncommon likewise to get up to a third to 50% move. Of course, that's already taking place at this particular point within it. Now, you can get bull runs within a broader short. The fact that the steel is remaining up and did not fade at all means that this isn't likely to be a sustained run. This is no different than the rallies that we caught right here, where we had steel from so far up above. We're going to get a similar effect. So once it returns back down, and usually once you dip below the 7.5 right here, that's usually the end of it. In this case, it popped back up for a moment and then did the exact same thing and actually returned lower than the previous one. So that's what you'll be watching for in a daily situation there. More likely than not, that will correspond to also with orange moving above green, ending that cycle. So keep that in mind. It just makes it super clear and easy to figure out which ones to worry about. So it does provide so many opportunities. And I remember in 2008 we had massive short cover rally days. Market would be up, hundreds of points, and that was crazy because at that point you're down near 1,200 in that. So it was a huge percentage moves, and only to continue the fade down. So that's why I love the flexibility of the way we're able to trade things. I was short at the early part of the morning and had to flip around, and it turned over. Back and forth, euro is going to decline as equities become popular, and then flip around. There's going to be a lot of talk about what caused it. Was it Trump's comments? Was it the fact that maybe the Fed, wanting to defend his job, decided to have the Fed buy? There's also talk about this massive reallocation from bonds into stocks on the oversold of $60-some billion. Many of those things could all have a factor. The reality is that an exacerbated drop like that without any return whatsoever, it doesn't take much to ignite short cover, because so many people get into it at different stages and they're late, and that causes them to have to buy back quickly so they don't go upside down. And of course that outflow is represented right there because, well, we've already talked about this. Treasury's way out of line price-wise. Little spark back up in oil doesn't mean anything after that big a decline. And of course gold did spike to a new high, but as the market rallied, transfer to gold, get back into from commodities you move back into equities. And then we look at our 5K, and so this is what we started with. We had the nice decline. We were coming through, we ended up with some soft little buys, and then we had this projection when this, I was speaking with a member about it. The orange candle came in. We looked for a retrace to the low, the open of the bar. So the open in this case was 2351, and when the spike out came, it was just a matter of looking for a situation that was the breakdown, and it started once you had cyan over green and orange over green as well. Ideally, you want to see red rolling over. The fact that it was below the -7.5 zone helps. Anytime you're below zero, you're in a little bit more weaker configuration than not. So whether you waited to the secondary one, which, well, that wasn't until 2359, you still, it's a great profit range when you know that you're heading to 51. And not only did we hit 51, we broke through it a little bit. We got a gold candle, after it popped back up right there around 60, and that brought us all the way back down to new lows. Once the new lows were in, there was a little bit of fighting within this because we ended up with some decent end signals, but I was warning in the chat as we were doing it, this rising red can be problematic for you if you want to continue to short. So I was pointing out how I will, if I'm short because of the primary, orange above. What we didn't have though was like the steel crossing below cyan, so none of these were the greatest, and so it's like, well, if you want to take the shorter side of it, it's like, well, I'll enter and then have a secondary add when you get a pop in orange in that looking for retracing. You can sit there and do that off and on, even through bull rally, but by the time we got up over the 50%, it was around 74 range, I flipped around and went long, and it wasn't until I went to dinner, it happened right in between here, and then came back and it was like, whoa, this is like still super long, and I just rode that one from there. We ended up with a couple of decent short signals that developed within it, and they weren't bad moves. I mean, this one was from the 2412, dropped all the way to 93. No matter where you come from, I think that's a pretty decent run. Once the steel in this case was reset, and boom, I started to put the defensive stock, and then boom, right around here, we could see that we were starting to get no more red follow through, and so I got stopped out of that one for there, and then it produced decent long once the green got over cyan at that particular point. And I mean, oddly enough, even from that situation, 048 to 18, you had a big 10-point move, and then it started to get a little sketchier there. It appeared to peak as the orange popped through, and this is kind of like right here, the exact configuration that we look for, where you have orange having just crossed green, green heading down to cross red, didn't quite get below red, but it was like pretty darn close, and then the steel crosses below cyan at the same time. They've all done that together. I just love this as the earliest short configuration you can possibly take, particularly with the flattening red at this particular point. That's 2418, and we dipped all the way to, well, it was 07-ish range, but I wasn't going to be able to catch the low on that one. But in this case, it was still worth a good 9+ points, and then we got into the crazy time. And this was the record-breaking time right in here. We ended up with cyan moving below red, which is always a long. It popped back up immediately, so it was kind of a little bit sketchy, but we were still getting green riding clean above there with above cyan, and it negates the orange in that particular case. And red rising, and then we got red above zero, and so even from the long right here at 17, by the time any weakness developed, we were so far into the stratosphere, it was just a matter of following, in this particular case, I followed ABM green all the way through this run, because without any move of steel going higher, this is the same continuation that we look for on the short side when steel is on the top. So it's just an inverted play of it, and it's just a beautiful thing. You don't have to do anything. Now, all these positive extremes beginning with, hey, that's right, let's go ahead and put it right on here because it's so relevant to begin. I'll just color it a little bit different color so that we can really distinguish it. I mean, these are the same things. These algos were previous, similar, but just for the sake of what we're looking for here, because as we came into the end of the day, we get what? Well, now, some people will say, well, what about these meeting points? Yes, when steel and cyan get close together like that, you can start to look for, but you don't have, in this case, orange above with green below red in any of those meet points right along through here. So, no. It doesn't really give you anything until you end up with the DOC spread, which takes place right around the 2470 marker. Which, what a move. I mean, at this point, you're up 130 some points on the ES. And so you get a secondary one in the post market. Again, there it is, where you have steel crossing, steel crosses cyan down below, green moving down to cross red, and orange moves above green, all at the same time. And bingo is your name-o. So at 2461, you can just start ticking off all the positive extremes to guess what number we had marked right there. 2427. What a surprise. Boom. Isn't that amazing? No way that anyone could possibly know that kind of thing in advance. And that is the beauty of algorithmic trading that everyone curses. Computers do the same things over and over because that's what they were planned to do until someone figures it out and they deviate from it. But that hasn't happened in quite a many years. So until that changes, not a whole lot for us to worry about because we nail it correctly every single time. So keep doing that and keep prospering. But this is just spectacular. Anyone who's stuck with this, it's like, even if you took 40, 50 points out of this move from 100 and some, even me who was wrong at the beginning and just, plodded away, was still able to catch the upside of it when it became, exceedingly clear that longs had it under control, and boom, took off. And then, of course, you can catch it going right back down with ease. So, I mean, this is a pretty decent 50% better retracement already. So bull excitement, maybe bears got a little bit happier at the pop in price up to this other previous algo here at 2476, which conveniently we capped out exactly. I was mentioning it as it was happening. We capped out exactly at it. So hey, you can keep seeing these over and over again, but they play out repeatedly. And I love showing it because it's important for you to have that confidence so that you're willing to wait for those full profit ranges that are listed there. Because if you don't, you really cut down on your profit factor, and you don't want to do that. You really want to maximize those returns. I was interested if 50K got out of that one. No, it's still riding it because it caught the buy all the way down here at 2371. So, yeah, quite a range. Anyway, that's the long and short of it for now. A little bit longer video because this was a huge day and the records keep coming, so we keep having a good time with that. As always, though, trade well and be ready for next year. It's going to be probably just as volatile, if not more, which is exciting stuff. Gotta love it. Trade well.